Hello everybody, welcome to this Excel 365 video on multi-criteria XLOOKUPs. This would apply to a data set where there's multiple occurrences of the item you're looking for throughout the data set, but there's distinctions between them that make them different. In the sample we have here, we have a list of the employee names, and there's 3 different Bob Smiths employed at this company. One works for HR, one works for accounting, and one works for legal. Okay, let's focus on this XLOOKUP example at the top for a moment. Normally, the first argument in an XLOOKUP would be the lookup value, which would be, quote, Bob Smith. The second argument would be the lookup array, and that's the array that you want to find Bob Smith in. For a multi-criteria XLOOKUP, you're going to do it a little bit differently. You're going to put the number value 1 as the lookup value, and then we're going to move on to the multi-criteria lookup array. I'll explain why we use the number 1 in just a moment. So for the lookup array, you're going to put within parentheses the column area that you want criteria 1 to be found in, and then equals criteria 1. So that's where you're going to put your Bob Smith. So in our example, we have B7 to B12 equals Bob Smith. Then after you've closed that parentheses off, you're going to multiply, open a new set of parentheses, and in here you put criteria 2. So you're going to put the criteria 2 range equal, and then the criteria 2 string, which would be accounting here. So in this example, we have D7 to D12 equals accounting. And then you close that parentheses, and now you can place your comma and move on to your return array, the value that you want to return back. So in this case, the hire date found in E7 to E12. Okay, we're almost there, but before I move on to explain why we put 1 as the lookup value, first, it's important to understand the spill characteristics in Excel 365. So in Excel 365, unlike previous versions, if the output of your function is an array, it's going to spill and fill up that number of cells for that array. Where in Excel previous to 365, if you tried to return an array into a single cell, it would result in an error. That's why if you try this technique on a version before 365, it's not going to work. Let me show you that in practice here real quick before we move on. So I'm just going to go into a blank cell and type equals B7 colon B13. So you can see Excel found the reference of B7 to B13, and it spilled that data over here on the right side where we input the formula into G19. Okay, with all that being said, let's move on to explain why the number 1 is used as the lookup value in a multi-criteria XLOOKUP. So if you see in this example, we have the formula B7 colon B13 equals Bob Smith, and that returns an array of true or false, whether or not that cell had Bob Smith in it or not. And going over one column, you see we have the formula D7 colon D13 equals accounting, and it returns an array of whether or not the value in those cells had accounting or not. Excel considers true as the number 1 and false as a 0. So when you multiply the two together, it'll return a numeric value of either 0 or 1. And that's what we did in this final column. So now it should be pretty clear. If you did an XLOOKUP and look for the number 1 in this final list, it would return that cell with a 1 in it. And that's exactly what we're doing in the example above. And then we're just returning the value from the matching row in the return array. And that's the end of the video. I hope you get some use out of this one, and I hope you consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.